Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a co-op update. I shared a video a couple of years ago about starting a Charlotte Mason style co-op and how I started it and why I started it and kind of like what the plan was. And ever since then I've gotten questions sprinkled in here and there, and anytime I mention our co-op I'll get some questions. So I decided that now that we've completed 2 full years of the co-op that I would give you a little update on how things are going. I'll give you a breakdown of the structure of our co-op, but really for this video you would need to watch that other video for the full context of like how I started it and why I started it. And then I decided to do a Q&A because most of the questions that I get come through Instagram, because I'll share little snippets on Instagram stories. And so I went ahead and posted a question box on Instagram for some co-op Q&A, and I got some really good questions. So I thought that that would kind of cover all the bases of all the standard questions that I get asked. So I'll go ahead and tell you the structure of our co-op and what's changed from that first year, and then I'll go through those questions. Okay, so first things first, like I said, you may want to watch that other video for full context because I'm just going to kind of run through the general format of our co-op and then give you a little bit of information about what's changed from last year. So the co-op is a Charlotte Mason style enrichment co-op. This was something that I started for middle and high schoolers specifically, with options available for younger siblings. The reason for that is because in our town there are so many co-ops and so many different CC communities and a lot of different options around here that cater to elementary grades, and there are a lot of elementary homeschoolers. There are very few options for middle and high schoolers. So I wanted, unless you're in CC. If you're not in CC, there's one thing specifically for middle or high schoolers around here, and it's a pretty rigorous type of co-op. Both middle and high school options in our town require that curriculum is chosen by the co-op, and that curriculum has to be carried out throughout the week. I didn't want that. I wanted an opportunity for my, at the time, middle schooler and now high schooler to be in community with people who were going to support our Charlotte Mason method. We're going to support our choice to homeschool the way that we do and how we'd like to during the week, and that would just enrich their experience doing what we're already doing at home. There are so many Charlotte Mason style homeschoolers in our town that I figured it would only be a matter of time before we would start meeting other ones as we shared with others. And so that very first year I started with 5 families, I believe, us included, who I knew already had a middle or high schooler, were following a Charlotte Mason type of method in their home, very light, I mean like we are, who kind of like or lean that direction, and who already had a middle or high schooler. I knew we had like 1 year to really work out the kinks because I knew we would start to grow, and this year we did. This year we grew by 3 additional families, and that was just through a very tight-knit word of mouth kind of a thing. Next year we're continuing to grow because word is spreading, and some of these families who are coming in next year we barely know. So I knew that this was going to happen, that it was going to be like you got 1 year to figure it all out because here we go. And that's what's happened, and I'm so excited, and it's just been an incredible blessing for our family. So the way the co-op works, the only requirements are that you have at least 1 middle or high schooler. It does not matter if you have younger kids. There are things for the younger kids to do, and I'll explain that as well. They have a full day as well, but the requirement is just you have a middle or high schooler. We are building a statement of faith this summer, but up until this point they've been Christian families, and that is the goal. Middle or high schooler, love the Lord, and that you follow a Charlotte Mason method loosely, I don't care, but the reason for that is because it impacts the way that you teach at a co-op, and I didn't want I do nature study, so I'll say I'll just use nature study as an example because I don't want somebody in our co-op to feel like I'm picking on them specifically if I use another example, because I'm not. But I didn't want, so for nature study, there is a specific way that if you're following a Charlotte Mason method, you're doing nature study in your home. Then there's a more lecture type of way, or there's a more textbook type of way to teach nature, and all of them are great ways to teach, but I wanted this to support the parents who are already following a Charlotte Mason method at home. So everything that we do is, one, considered to be like an enrichment subject, and two, it's taught with a Charlotte Mason style in mind. So those are the three like requirements that we have for the co-op, and I'll kind of get into adding new families when I do the Q&A, because we're working through that right now. This is the point we're at now. We're kind of out of this early years and moving in toward, okay, how are we gonna navigate this? How are we gonna navigate that? But those are the three things, and that's been great so far, and the families that have joined have been wonderful fits. And I don't really anticipate there being a poor fit for the group, because if you are following a Charlotte Mason method, you have a middle or high school, or you've kind of been doing this for a while, then you're gonna be a good fit for the group in general. Like, we're all just wanting to support each other, and enrichment is very, it's not very intense. It's just an enjoyable way. It's low pressure. So it's been great. I can see like that we have, a lot of us have different family, like just our family cultures at home are very different, but because it's an enrichment co-op, it's real chill. Like, there's not much homework. There's not a lot of intensity. So it's just enjoyable. So moving into our structure of our day, and I'll just name a couple things that have changed from last year. Really, it's only one thing. So same as last year, our first hour is our morning meeting, and in that morning meeting, you have various parents sprinkling in some different enrichment type of things that's done as a group. Morning meeting is everyone. It's all the parents. Dads are welcome to come if they'd like to. We have dads who come all the time. That was a question that I got last year, and I couldn't believe that was a question. Like, of course, dads are welcome. We have a lot of dads who work from home and who like to come to our co-op days. And there was one dad last year who came almost every time, and then John's there frequently, and lots of dads come at lunchtime, and it's just a very enjoyable experience. So morning meeting, it's parents who are there, as well as all of the kids, from the toddlers, kindergartners, all the way up through the high schoolers. Everyone's at this morning meeting. Everyone's participating at morning meeting. Morning meeting is where the moms kind of bring what they want to share for the year. If they don't have one of like the main subjects during the day, then they probably have one of those enrichment subjects in the morning. And year to year, we sit down and say, hey, what do you guys want to do? So this year we had picture study, which is just like a very simple 5-minute, you know, simply Charlotte Mason picture study. We had missionary story, where somebody just read a chapter of a different missionary book. We had some etiquette or habit lessons, just some, you know, light introduction of different habits or etiquette rules. Last year we had catechism. This year we had opportunity for the kids to share any poetry or Bible memory work that they were doing. So every week they would have a chance to do that. What else did we have? We had poet, hymn, things like that. So all those subjects that you may already be doing in your own morning basket at home, we did as a group. I should also mention we meet twice a month, every other Monday outside. So we're meeting at a park. You have to have that visual to understand our morning meeting. So everybody lays out their blankets or their lawn chairs, and we sit all together and we just run through some of these subjects. We read a liturgy together, the liturgy for students and scholars. It's lengthy, but all of the kids have basically memorized it at this point. We have menus that we all use, like morning menus. It's got our liturgy, it's got our pledge to the flag, to the Bible, the Christian flag. We've got our poem in there that we're all working on together. We've got the hymn in there that we're all working on together. It's got a schedule of the day, because kids are always confused, like, where am I going first? And so we sit down and we have that morning meeting, and that's what changes year to year. Last year we had the kids leading us in the hymns. This year, you know, or with their music and things like that. So it's just different year to year. We're gonna sit down sometime this summer and with all the new families and say, would you guys like to do anything? I know that there is one mom who wants to, Spanish is her first language, so she wants to bring Spanish lessons into that morning meeting for the kids. Just little light touches of different things. From there, that's where we break off for the day. So we're outside at a park, we're all together for that first hour, and then that second, the next subject that they go to is literature. So this is where we have a parent who wants to teach literature for the middle and high schoolers, and a parent who wanted to do literature this year for the younger kids. That's what's new, one of the new things this year. We have an elementary literature group, and we have a middle and high school literature group where they're doing literature circles or a book study, things like that. So we have 3 different 45-minute sessions. So the younger kids did Aesop's Fables this year, and again, Charlotte Mason style. They did all their narrations. They put on little plays, they did written narrations, they did fun different presentations, and it was a great introduction to that for them. The older ones did, like I said, literature circles where they read different books and took different roles and shared with one another, and that was really cool. They also worked on some different kind of poetry, and they had a great time with that as well. The next thing they would move into all together for the next 45 minutes was nature study. So for this, all of elementary, middle, and high school were together, and I was using the John Muir Law's How to Teach Nature Journaling, and I would just give them an introduction to a different type of nature journaling, and then they would go out and spend about 30 minutes working in their nature journals, and then we'd come back together at the end, and whoever wanted to share would share. And then after that, the final 45-minute session was apologetics for the middle and high schoolers, where they would do like debate style apologetics topics. And this was really great for them. We had an outside teacher come in and teach that. That was a great opportunity for them, although there are a lot of great apologetics curriculum that you can use as well, just different topics that you can bring up. And for that section, the elementary kids were off to free play, because at that point it was 11:30. They've been engaged since 9, and it's time for them to just go have a good time. And so then we'd all come back together, prayer and lunch, and have a good lunch together. Some people would have to leave. Some of us would stay all afternoon at the park. And this is how we ran the year. Now, the only thing that changed from last year is last year we had 4 30-minute sections, and one of those included an art or craft. This year we had 3 45-minute sections, and for nature study, I would teach, because that's the subject that everyone's together for, so I would teach 3 weeks in a row, and then the 4th week, a different parent would bring in a seasonal or holiday craft. So the kids would still get some art time or some craft time, but it was every 4th meeting, so every other month we would have a nice handcraft. So we had beeswax candles, we had some string art, we had, what else did we have? The kids made terrariums this year, some really cool Christmas ornaments. So we would have a different craft every other month, and a different parent would be in charge of that. Yeah, it worked out really well. I'm trying to think if anything else changed from the year prior. This year we also would have a couple of parents volunteer each time, and we'd be on a rotation to bring muffins and fruit or yogurt or things like that for the kids for breakfast, so everyone could just get there at 9, and there were already some pastries or muffins for everyone. So we all have large families. None of us had to worry about feeding our families, because then we'd all be there at like 9:45 if we did. So that was helpful, but that was a casual, like optional experience. You weren't required to participate in that, although everybody did. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We did do one outside of the co-op experience, which was our Christmas Around the World that we did in December. We did it last year in December as well. It gave all the kids an opportunity to present. I'm trying to think. I think that's pretty much it. So it's very, gentle co-op thing. Not a lot of supplies or materials required. Everybody purchased a nature journal at the beginning of the year, and we had a donation from one of the parents, one of the grandparents of the group wanted to donate to buy all nice tools for our nature study. So pocket microscopes, and we had colored pencils and watercolors and rulers and all sorts of stuff. So the mom of the grandparent, so the parent of that family would just bring that bucket of supplies each week, so the kids really didn't have to have any other supplies with them each week besides whatever book they were reading in literature, their physical nature journal, and their menu that we use for our morning meetings. So other than that, it was very, low pressure when it came to materials and, lugging things back and forth. So yeah, so just to recap, morning meeting time, split off for literature, and then nature study or craft time, and then younger kids play, older kids did apologetics. We also had a mom this year volunteer because we had a substantial number of kindergartners this year. Almost every family had a kindergartner this year. So we had 5 or 6 little pre-K4 kindergarten age kids this year. So we had a mom who said, I'll take that group this year and kind of break them off from the elementary group and work with just them. So she did a little nature lesson with them. They'd go on little nature walks. They would do some fun games and sensory bins and things like that, because now next year they're gonna be sitting in that elementary literature class and they're gonna be sitting in the formal nature lesson. So it's just kind of a way to get them to start learning the process of sitting attentively and being obedient. And so next year they're gonna be worked into the fold as far as the elementary group goes. So that was a huge blessing, although again, it's not a position that we necessarily are going to require a parent to fill each year, but it was just a fun thing and a blessing that our friend offered to do. Her child was one of those kindergartners. So that was really just great because that group was kind of on their own a lot and they were just sweet to watch. So now moving into next year, I think the only thing that will change as far as the structure is we are thinking about having a middle school, an elementary school apologetics group as well, because the kids were really interested in that. The younger kids are just cannot wait to be in 6th grade so they can be in that group. They love the debates. And then we were considering splitting middle and high schoolers for literature, because that group where it started out as 6 kids, this year we have 12 kids, and so there is enough to kind of split that middle and high school group up and work. There's a big difference between 6th and 12th grade, although when you're reading books together and doing narrations, that's a really cool experience to hear from older and younger kids, but it might be a good time to split that group up. I'm not completely sure what we're gonna do next year, but we have some meetings this summer to discuss, and it's just exciting. I look forward to that first meeting where everyone kind of brings what they want to do to the table. For example, I'm gonna continue nature study next year as long as everyone's okay with that. And I know there's a mom who wants to do Spanish, and if there are other moms who want to sprinkle things in and they'll make mention of things, and it's that'd be so cool in morning meetings. So I always look forward to that meeting to kind of see what we'll do the next year. Nothing's too set in stone because it's supposed to enrich what you're already doing. It's not supposed to take away from you. Now you have this burden to learn a handcraft because you're in charge of teaching handcraft next year. It's not supposed to be like that. This is supposed to add, not take away, students and parents. I wanted this when I first pitched the idea to a group of people. I wanted this to be a blessing and a ministry, not just to the kids, but to the parents as well, because haven't we all had the experience where we joined a co-op and it took away more than it gave you as a parent, where you now are working on these lesson plans and staying up late and burning that midnight oil because you joined a co-op and now you're stuck, with these massive lesson plans. That's not what we wanted to do at all. And 2 years in, I'll say it's worked out really well, except for me, when I had craft, I was a little rattled by that because it's not my strong point, but I picked one that was simple enough for me to carry out. That was the only point of contention for me this year, I don't know if I can do this, but I learned and we did it and it was fine. Everyone was okay. So I'm gonna go through some of the questions that I got on Instagram now, and that should kind of cover all the bases if I left anything out. So let me go grab my phone. Got my phone, and I will say I apologize for the lighting. It's really rainy today, almost pitch black outside, kind of rainy, but this is when I have a chance to sit down and do this. Okay, so first question was, how many times a month do you meet? Which subjects seem to work best? We meet twice a month, every other Monday, and we actually currently meet at 2 different parks. One that's kind of more south in our county and one that's more north in our county, because we have families who are spread out. If you take the furthest south family and the furthest north family, they probably live a good 45 to 50 minutes apart from one another. So we just thought it'd be great to have 2 different park options. And then if one park is flooded, you have the other park as an option. And which subjects seem to work best? Just the enrichment subjects. I think you can't go wrong with enrichment subjects as long as not too many supplies and materials are required. How do you deal with different discipline or behavior standards between families? Well, this is one area where it's really helpful that we are all professing Christians, because you pretty much all have a very similar standard. But then there's always like, instead of like different behavioral issues, I would say, or different standards, I think there are sometimes different, like, you know, kids are kids. Like a 6th grade, 7th grade boy is gonna behave differently than a senior girl, or vice versa. You know, it just, there's always, different age ranges are gonna have like various problems as your kids grow up and like mature. And so for that, we've just been very kind with one another, speaking to each other's parents. Nobody's been very defensive. I know that moving in, as we add more families to the group, like I said, we're gonna have a statement of faith that we can refer back to. And then one thing we're considering is like family sponsorship in the group, which is kind of common practice around here. When I joined a co-op years and years ago, it was like a family sponsorship type of deal where I had to get to know one of the families when we joined, kind of like big sister, little sister kind of a thing. And whenever there was a teacher who maybe didn't know us very well, or you know, had a concern, there was somebody else who could say like, oh yeah, I know that family, this, you know, this child maybe, you know, struggles with, I had a kid at the time who was really, I don't want to say like hyper, but you know, didn't like to sit in a chair. And it really grieved me because that kid was getting punished on a regular basis. Thankfully, somebody kind of caught it and was able to say like, this is not a, like, it was just kind of I kept hearing sin issue. This is a sin issue. It was not a sin issue. It was a 4-year-old issue, which was just, you know, they needed to go play on the playground for a little bit. And so I thankfully had a family who knew me well enough to kind of say something. So that's something to consider. Like if you're comfortable, if you don't know a family from Adam, at least there's one family who knows you and can say like, hey, this kid was doing this, that, or the other. But for the most part, the parents are all hanging around. We're all around one another. And if you see something, you say something, and that's been a pretty good method. And like I said, we're outdoors, and so it's different. We're not like locked in different classrooms where parents aren't seeing things. We're all together, maybe just at 2 separate pavilions, but in the same general area. Does your co-op support younger siblings also? Yes, I already mentioned that. What's the structure? What does a day look like? I shared that. How do you delegate prep work without losing the original intent or content of your vision? We don't have subjects that require massive prep work. This was my one thing going into this. Like I said, I had joined a co-op years ago and it just took so much from me. I now had to learn all this stuff that I didn't know. I had to spend hours preparing lessons. This is different. It's a totally different setup. So I think whenever you're doing enrichment subjects and every parent volunteers for what they'd like to bring to the table, that's how you delegate the prep work. What if they don't pull their weight but insist on joining? That, again, in our co-op, there's not that much weight to pull. Everybody brings something that they want to add to the table. And one thing is, if it's your first year, this is something that we've set up. If it's your first year, you can only take like an assisting role. So you have a year to settle in, get to know how things function, and also just rest, because a lot of times you're joining a co-op because you're just burnt out. This was something we were encouraged to do at the Simply Charlotte Mason retreat a couple of years ago, to operate like a ministry and allow parents to rest. And so this year I had an assistant for nature study. The literature teacher had an assistant. And that way, if somebody's sick or you can't come one week, somebody's there to pick up the slack. And otherwise, what was the question? Otherwise, there's not a lot of weight to pull. It's all very simple. Do we have a max? Currently, we don't have a max, because with every you know, set of kids who join, a parent joins as well. And so there's a way to just continue adding to the group as of right now. So like I said, with more families joining next year, I think we have 2 more families that are joining, 2 or 3. That's also 2 or 3 more parents. And so we may be able to add a middle school and a high school book club. We may be able to add an elementary apologetics. So many hands makes light work. Good location for everyone to gather. We've loved meeting at a park. There's hardly anyone there on a Monday. We've never had an issue with meeting at parks and playgrounds. Any legal documentation needed to run one? No, not in our area, and we're not handling finances. So we haven't had to cross that bridge at all either. Are we a free co-op or do you charge per class? We're a free co-op, and everybody just like, we all, I think, pitched in like $5 last year to bulk order the menus and journals. What exactly is a co-op? Well, it's supposed to be a cooperative learning environment. Co-ops that I have attempted to join in the past seemed very difficult. It did not seem cooperative. There were some parents who didn't even stay on campus. And then like, it was my first year in the co-op, and I was literally an assistant or a teacher in a different class every week, and I never saw my kids. So it's supposed to be cooperative. Everyone brings something to the table, works together to make something happen. How do you handle when families join but then flake out often or aren't truly committed? Again, I don't want to keep like saying the same thing repetitively, but being an enrichment style co-op, this is something where it hasn't really happened. We've had families go on vacation a couple times throughout the year, us included. We've had families who get sick, us included. But other than like the literature circles, that doesn't necessarily make a massive dent in the plans for the day, unless that person who's missing had a role in the book circles, but there's always multiple kids. So, you know, they just kind of move on to the next subject in that book club. There's no requirement for attendance as of right now. I'm not sure if that's something that we'll want to add into our kind of like family contract that we're talking about this summer, because we're going to be adding in behavioral things as well, just so that the teachers of each group feel confident in saying like, you signed this, you know, I know your mom agrees that this is how we'd like to have your behavior be, blah, blah, blah. But we may add attendance, although it hasn't been an issue. We haven't had any issue with that. Statement of faith or mission statement, that's what we're going to be adding now. Insurance, no. Is it Simply Charlotte Mason based? No, although I would say the majority of the families use Simply Charlotte Mason curriculum, but no, it's not Simply Charlotte Mason based. Simply Charlotte Mason does have a Together, I think it's called Simply Charlotte Mason Together. I'm not exactly sure, but they do have co-op curriculum now, so check that out. It's pretty neat. Can I make a video about starting a co-op? Yes, I have one. I will link it down below. How do you decide what the focus and purpose of the co-op should be? Again, I just decided when I kind of pulled it all together, I want it to be enrichment subjects. And then each year we just sit down and brainstorm what we want that to be. How do you keep, let's see, oh, there's lots of questions here. So some people are saying they've wanted to join co-ops that are consistently full. It's hard. Sorry, my camera died. I was just saying we haven't had that issue yet. But I don't anticipate getting there either. We'll see. I don't expect to close to any families who want to join. I think it's kind of like a niche group of like Charlotte Mason committed homeschoolers with middle or high schoolers. I see us growing here and there, a couple families a year, but I don't see us turning into like 100 family co-op. But I'm sure we would just modify, because that would be a huge blessing, right? The more the merrier. If you want to support one another and you love the Lord, I think that'd be super cool. Here was, how do you suggest finding a co-op in your area? We have some local homeschooling Facebook pages where people list things. I also know that Simply Charlotte Mason purchased a Charlotte Mason style co-op finder, so I'll link that below if I can find it. And I couldn't find what I wanted, so I just started one. So that's my answer to that. This little update answered all your questions and just gave you some insight onto how things are going for us. If you have any more questions, leave those in the comments down below, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.